Welcome to our third webinar of 3. This is a webinar called Prevent and Protect Against Fraud and Financial Abuse. November, as you know, is Financial Literacy Month, and this month we're providing Canadians with education to help them better manage their finances. The first 2 webinars really focused on the financial aspect around managing debt and managing and building the future and looking at your finances and how to save and invest. This third webinar really focuses on the more sinister ways in which an individual's wealth or identity can be compromised and prevent this from happening. So today's webinar is being recorded. Any financial reporting analysis, projections, or other observations must be construed solely as statements of opinion and not statements of fact or recommendations to purchase, sell, or hold any securities. We ask that no one record this webinar without CSI's explicit written permission. And lastly, no one has permission to quote any of the comments made or questions asked by the webinar audience. So please note that this presentation is being offered by CSI, a Moody's Analytics company, which operates independently of Moody's Investor Services, the credit rating agency. So for optimal listening, all attendees are currently on mute. If you'd like to ask a question, please enter it in the Q&A box in the lower right-hand corner of the webinar presentation screen. So it's my pleasure now to introduce the host of our session, John Pappas. John leads the business development team at CSI, as well as the learning support team around the globe at Moody's Analytics. Prior to joining CSI, John worked in various capacities in the financial services industry for 20 years as an economist, investment advisor, account executive, and market trader. So John will be moderating the panel and handling the questions from our audience. So let me turn the session over to John.
Thank you, Marie. Good afternoon to everybody in Eastern Time Zone. Good morning to those further to the east, and good evening for anybody who may happen to be joining us from a more easterly time zone, should I say. We're very excited to bring you our expert panel today, the third in our series of webinars. We have with us today an expert panel with many years of experience in their respective areas, helping clients navigate their financial life. From middle to right on your screen, I would like to introduce first Krista James, who is National Director for the Canadian Centre for Elder Law. We have with us as well Ryan Rideout, who is the Director of Provincial Partnerships and Outreach with Elder Abuse Ontario. And finally, Irina Koropenko, who is a wealth planner with HSBC here in Canada. The format for today will be 4 questions, 3 of which will be answered by our panelists. It will be more in a presentation style. So each panelist will take about 5 to 10 minutes to respond and present their response to the individual question. After the panelists have done their rounds, I will bring Marie back into the equation and ask her a question. And then we'll leave about 10 to 15 minutes, ideally, at the end of all of these responses for questions from all the attendees. Feel free to ask your questions throughout online. I will collect and then ask the questions at the end of our presentations. So starting off, the first question I will pose to Irina. Irina, what is financial abuse and fraud, and who are the most common victims?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. And my name is Irina, and I am a wealth planner with HSBC Private Wealth Services. I would like to tell you that I've been in the industry for 25 years, and I have a top designations in my field. I'm certified financial planner, chartered life underwriter, trust and estate practitioner, and I have other designations. In my role and role of wealth planner is to provide financial planning, which includes comprehensive planning in estate, tax, retirement, and business planning. In this job, we sometimes see examples of financial abuse and fraud. And what it is, this is when someone tries to take control what belongs to you for their own benefit, not to your benefit. And it's not like a single event. It could happen very often over a period of time. You see some examples of financial abuse and fraud, and it comes in various forms. It could be improper use of joint bank account. Somebody can use a power of attorney document, or maybe share somebody's home and don't pay for home, maybe misuse assets without permission. There are many, many examples. And one of them I just illustrated as a predatory marriage. Please, next slide. And who are most common victims? This is people who are elderly people. It's each year about 10% of Canadian seniors are victims of crime and financial abuse. And often it starts after the health crisis or after the death of the spouse or partner or close friend. So that's the life where we live today, and we have to watch what's going on. We listen to other experts on that topic.
Thank you, Irina. Thank you for defining that for us. We'll move on to the next question, and I will pose this question to Krista. Krista, what are the different types of fraud to look out for? How can I recognize it?
Thank you. And so you can just advance to my first slide, I think. Hi. So, I'm happy to answer questions about any kinds of financial abuse, but I promised to talk about frauds and scams today. The focus of my presentation will be on a series of tools we developed about, 6 years ago called Be a Savvy Senior. So just to let everyone know, you don't have to take notes. Pretty much everything I say today is covered by the tools that are available from our website. And there's a slide here that has our website. Can you go to the next slide, please? Hi. So the Canadian Centre for Elder Law is a nonprofit organization. We have a number of projects on the go. Be a Savvy Senior is just one of our projects. I encourage you to check out our website to learn about the rest of our work. For example, we have a guide on elder abuse, which connects a lot to some of the issues that Irina was talking about a moment ago. So our URL is on the website. It's bcli.org/ccel. Next slide, please. So the Be a Savvy Senior tools, which we developed a number of years ago with funding from the federal government, there's basically like 3 parts to the tools. There is a series of 5 fact sheets. They are all available in English and French. There are 2 videos, one in English and one in French. They're animations. They're a little over 3 minutes. And we also produced a calendar. I'll just show you a hit. The calendar was for the year 2013. We're thinking about re-releasing the calendar with an updated date. So keep your eyes peeled for that. All of the tools that we developed focus on what are examples of scams and how to recognize them and what to do if you get sent one of these malicious emails or phone calls or texts. So next slide, please. So scams happen all over the place, and the increasing access to technology in our lives means that there are different ways that sophisticated fraudsters and scammers can reach us. They can access us over the phone. Increasingly, they're accessing online. Sometimes they even show up at our house or approach us in the community. Next slide, please. So one of the most common ways that fraudsters try to get money from seniors is over the telephone. And so this slide shows you 2 of the most common scams that we see over the telephone. The first one is the grandparent scam. So what happens is you'll get a call from a phone call out of the blue from someone who says they're your relative, probably a grandchild or some other younger relation. They won't say their name. They'll say they're in trouble. They'll try to prompt you to say their name because they actually don't know who any of your grandchildren are, right? They're kind of cold calling you, hoping that they will incite your interest. So they'll try to convince you that somebody you care about deeply is in trouble, maybe they're in jail, and they'll tell you to send money to get them out of trouble. And they'll always say, don't tell anybody. I need you to send the money quickly. And this kind of the don't tell anyone, send money quickly. There are always red flags that whatever is going on is a scam. Nobody will tell you not to tell anyone unless they are, actually a kidnapper or a scammer of some kind. The other most common thing that we see through telephone scams is a telemarketing scam. Well, they will call you up and they'll say, hey, you're so lucky, you're winning this prize. Or we're giving you a chance to get some money off of a very low risk investment. We just need you to confirm your information. And when they say confirm, they're not going to give you any information. They're trying to trick you into telling you information that you should keep secret, like your password. So please, one of the take home things is never tell anybody your password, right? Anybody calling you to say your password over the phone is a scammer. Next slide, please. I'm just showing you on the slide 2 scams that have recently been coming up in relation to COVID. So during the pandemic, a lot of us are afraid, and fear is a perfect scenario for encouraging people for tricking people into doing things that are imprudent. So this slide shows you a couple of the COVID scams we've been seeing. One of them is that you're in trouble with the Canada Revenue Agency, something to do with your taxes. You have to give your social insurance number so that you won't be arrested. So CRA never phones people. They will communicate with you through email, and they will send you a link to a secure site. There are very specific restrictions in how you can access Canada Revenue Agency, but they don't phone you. Now, the COVID scam is other one is the miracle cure scam, or we can give you a head start on the vaccine. Or they might say they'll help you to fill out government forms. But whenever somebody is sending you an email, they're going to help you in relation to COVID, I'm asking you to always be suspicious. Never click the link. If you want medical information, please contact your physician, and they will be able to tell you if there is a cure available. Please look at the government agencies, look for the provincial government for your jurisdiction. The public health officer provides information. The federal government also has a site through Public Health Agency of Canada that will provide you with accurate information about COVID-19. Next slide, please.
Krista, very quick
Sure.
question from me on this with regards to the COVID scam. I'm not terribly familiar with this particular one, so it's a little bit new. From your experience, does it tend to be targeted at an older population, or is it just general?
I don't think so. Like some scams, like the grandparent scams, certainly target grandparents, but these kind of scams, I think, are targeting everyone. I've had 2 very specific attempts to corrupt my identity in the last 10 months of the pandemic, and I've heard of similar situations being where older people have been targeted. I think that older people are maybe vulnerable to very specific kinds of fears, such as fears about making enough money to be secure for your retirement. But these COVID scams, everyone is being targeted.
Okay, thank you for that.
So some of the scams that we're seeing through the internet, and these scams are particularly dangerous because it's easy to give your private information over to a scammer just by casually clicking a button. So the 2 most common ones are some kind of advertising scam where you're being offered a deal. Usually there might be a pop-up window that shows up, or there's a link that says you can follow this link and you can get an amazing deal on some kind of product. It's very important not to click these links. And I would encourage you not to click the link ever unless you know the person who is sending you the email. And as an added layer of care, sometimes people will send, scammers will try to copy the identity of people you know. Like, for example, I get scam emails ostensibly from my boss all the time. It'll say the name of my boss in the from line of the email, but if I actually hover over that email the name, I will see that the email address is different from my employer's actual email addresses. So please, if you get an email asking you to do something, don't just check the sender's name. Always check the email address to see if it's recognizable. And if it's a strange email from someone you think you recognize, protect yourself by calling first and saying, "Did you just send me an email asking me to send you money?" And then you can quickly double check if you should respond to that email. But emails with deals are almost always scams. One of the most common scams we see is the fake inheritance one. And I get this email about once every 2 weeks. My junk email box, my filter on my email catches a lot of them. But what you get is an email from someone saying you are going to get an inheritance. And the sender will be posing to be a lawyer or an accountant, and they will ask you to give them money, send them money to get your inheritance. And it should always be a red flag. You never send money to get money. Another way to help with your sort of spidey senses about recognizing scam emails is they tend to be rife with spelling errors or strange grammatical structures, poorly worded sentences, because they're often coming from out of the country through people for whom English isn't a first language. Next slide, please. A more new scam is the romance scam. So probably scamming through romance is a very old strategy, but scamming through dating sites is a newer strategy. So you meet somebody on an online dating site, you think you're in love, they seem wonderful, but then suddenly they're in trouble and they need money. And they need you to give them money and not tell anyone. Or they need you to give them money and they've never met anybody you know. People you've just started dating should not be asking you for tons of money. So this should be a red flag that there is a scam going on. Please don't send money to someone you just started dating. I know there's a lot of fear about being alone out there, but if you want to make sure this person is really reliable, meet with them with other people you trust. Bring them home to meet family when the pandemic is over, but don't trust people who are unwilling to meet someone else that you know. Next slide, please. So just to show you, we actually have a video on our website about dating scams. You can go to the website to watch it if you want to see it. Dating scams in 2019 cost Canadians over $18 million. So they really are a significant part of the scamming out there. Next slide, please. I'm just going to skip this one. I think it's kind of covered. Thank you. The bogus contractor scam. Now, this is a scam what I say is probably targeting seniors more than others. What happens is someone shows up at your house and they see your roof needs fixing, or your door is hanging off the hinges, or your lawn needs cleaning, and they're offering to do a whole bunch of work for you for a good price, but you need to give them money up front. Or they work for a little bit one day and then they need you to pay all the rest of the money. So never give money up front for work like this. And the other thing to do is when you're looking at hiring a contractor, there are lots of things you can do to check the quality of the work. You can ask for references from previous people for whom they've done work. You can contact the Better Business Bureau. You can ask to see a business card, see if they're listed, if they have a really good website. You want to do your homework before you hire a contractor. And if you're ever not sure, just talk to other people, get second opinions. Next slide, please. I'm going to skip this one too in the interest of the time, John, because I think I'm running up on the end of my time.
No, I think you're
Yep.
you're going just fine, Krista.
Okay, so I'll just mention one other scam that again is an older scam, but it may have changed form with technology. Is that when somebody in the community is trying to get you to invest money or help them sell products, and again, this is sort of like a Mary Kay products or Tupperware times 1,000. They want you to invest money. They want you to help them sell products to other people and invest money. they want to prey on your good contacts and good respect in the community to try and scam other people. And this, in a way, is one kind of scam where seniors are targeted because, and what I often say is that seniors are actually targeted because of their strengths, not because of their naivete. And I think seniors are often made to feel bad when they're scammed, but scammers are actually quite sophisticated, and they're successful because they're good at what they do. And when it comes to the friend of a friend scam, they're preying on your good respect in the community, your strong relationship throughout the community, and they're trying to use your reputation to get money. So please be suspicious when somebody is trying to get you to use your relationships to allow them to make lots of money, and trust your instincts. It's, I think sometimes also older people, we are taught to have good manners and to treat other people with respect. And that can sometimes make it hard to say no when people are very passionately trying to get us to help them. But saying no is a very important way to protect yourself. It's not rude. It's about protecting your investments. Next slide, please. So just the last few slides, I want to underscore a few things about protecting yourself. So you want to trust your gut. So if your instincts are telling you that this is too good to be true or that something is fishy, please respect your instincts over the supplications of a person you've never met before. You know, you're an intelligent person, and a lot of us can smell something problematic when we see it. Secondly, so guard your personal information. You should never be telling another person your password, your social insurance number. That is a document you should keep at home. Don't even put it in your purse. You will rarely need it except if you're applying for maybe employment insurance, the CERB benefit, or filing your income taxes, maybe renewing your driver's license. You rarely need your SIN number or your SIN card, so keep it at home so it won't fall out of your purse even. And don't tell anyone, even information like your address and your phone number. If you don't trust the person, don't give that information, because anytime you provide personal information, you increase the level of risk for yourself. People use your personal information to steal your identity, to pretend to be you, and then take out credit cards and other loans in your name. Next slide, please. So a basic principle is you never pay to win, and you never pay to inherit money. You might buy a lottery card, that's the only time, or a lottery ticket, that's the only time you're paying to inherit money. If you haven't actually bought the ticket and you're getting an email to say that you won, I assure you that's a scam. You don't win things you didn't enter to win. You never pay money to get your inheritance. Like, there might be fees associated with inheritance. You could have heard about probate fees, but those are not paid by the person who gets the money. Those will be paid by the estate. Next slide, please. So I said before that scammers are sophisticated, and that's true. You're not getting scammed because you're dumb, and don't let anybody convince that's what happened. However, you can get some basic information to help protect yourself from fraud. And that's really what I'm trying to do in this presentation. Everything I said is underscored in the different fact sheets that we've produced. So you can download them, you can share them with your friends. They're available for free from our website. Now, if you did do something that has made yourself vulnerable to fraud, or a scammer has accessed your information, I encourage you to report it really quickly to different places. And Rianne, whose presentation is going to follow mine, is going to tell you exactly where to call or where to go online if somebody has accessed your money or stolen your identity. Next slide, please. So this is just a final slide with some information on where to reach me. It's got the URL to our website. All the information we produce is available for free from our website. You can see the Twitter handle and the Facebook page for the Canadian Centre for Elder Law. Again, we try to put helpful information out there. You can subscribe to our newsletter and get regular updates. And if you have questions I haven't covered, here's my email address. You can feel free to reach out to me. Our phone lines are open, but I'm not at my office now during the pandemic. So email is a much better way to reach me than trying to reach me by phone. So, and thank you very much. I said I'm happy to answer any questions throughout the talk today.
Thank you, Krista. Thank you for that very detailed response and advice. That's fantastic. With regards to questions, yes, absolutely. You've indicated, Krista, that people can take your email and contact you directly. But in addition to that, I'd like to remind our audience today that they're free to ask questions online on the online Q&A. I will consolidate as many as I possibly can for the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. So by all means, feel free to ask questions, whether they're directed at any specific person or just the panelists in general. So moving on to our third panelist, Rayanne. This question is directed to you. What is the best way to respond to financial scams and abuse?
Thank you, John, for and my other presenters today for giving us some really good background information about financial abuse and scams. So today I want to give a little bit more information about where you can report and what you can do if you become a victim of either financial abuse or scams. And as our previous speakers have indicated, they are different in their different capacities. So if you could just go to the next slide. One of the things I just wanted to point out that they've made quite relevant is that the vulnerability of older adults to both frauds and scams, as well as financial abuse, are really relevant, and particularly with the COVID pandemic, has really increased that vulnerability because we see more people at home now, may not be able to get out in terms of getting their own groceries or maybe relying on other people. So there's that opportunity that we often see with fraud and financial abuse that that people take advantage of. So many people may be losing their jobs, maybe moving back in with their older parent if they don't have the economic means to maybe pay rent or because of their financial means. So the increase of financial vulnerability for older adults, particularly during COVID, has increased, as well as Krista just mentioned with the COVID scams and frauds. There's numerous of those that are actually happening. So if these happen, it really is important to know what you should do, and which I'm going to cover. And then what the role of the officers or RCMP or other government agencies that can help you. I want to just talk a little bit about that. And also in terms of prevention, I know Krista did a really good job in reviewing the great toolkit that they have. And I want to just provide some other tips around how you can work with your bank and also recovering emotionally, because when you're a victim of fraud or a scam, it really does have an emotional toll on your well-being. So we're going to talk about what resources you can get to support yourself through those times when you really may feel really desperate in these situations. Have the next slide, please. So I think that one of the things that's really important is to, when you first think that you might be experiencing frauds and scam or financial abuse, when you become aware of it, is to really just sort of to step back a bit, think about what happened and stay calm and not get really excited and what you don't know what else to do, because it can have such devastating impact on our emotional well-being. And we blame sometimes ourselves, like, how could I be so stupid to be conned by this individual or give my credit card. Anybody can be a victim of fraud or scam. So we don't want people to think that, and that this is, I don't want to say this is small, but it's because they are so professional, as Krista mentioned. They have such tactics they use to get your information just like that. And before you know it, it's like, what did I just do? And I think it can happen to all of us. And I think Krista had mentioned it, it's happened to her. It's happened to myself. I think one thing we haven't really mentioned yet is social media is another way that these scammers are taking advantage of individuals. So sort of step back a bit, think what's going on, look at what information you need. Often we get reports in our organization from family members, from seniors themselves, but also from family members who are kind of concerned about someone. They may see someone showing up and not knowing what's going on, or there's a misuse of power of attorney where they see there's a new car in the driveway and I know that, the son is unemployed, so how can you afford that? So, and maybe the son is a power of attorney. So is, asking questions about, with the older person, or if this is if you're a victim yourself, like look at your financial statements. Look, is there anything strange going on? Look at your credit card statements. Many of us get those in the mail or through email, and how often do we actually go through them to see if there's anything that's odd that's happening within our banking statements or our financial accounting? And those who are in financial investments may also see or hear someone out of the blue now just sort of saying, I'm the power of attorney, I need to withdraw money from, from mom's account. So there's a lot of red flags that we need to be considerate of, but try to gather information that you have. If you've been, communicating through letters or emails or text messages, try to keep track of where that originally came from. As Krista mentioned, they could be sending it by email. When an officer or someone wants to investigate, they're going to want to have some of that information as evidence to go back to. So don't just delete it, maybe put it in a file that you want to look back at later, so then they can look at that information, because it's so easy for us to just sort of want to forget about it and delete it. If there's any statements or credit card or credit statements or contracts that you've signed, where there's a lot of con artists out there now with COVID also that Krista mentioned, they're going door to door, maybe you're signing something, keep copies of those kind of things as well. And then stop all the communication with the fraudster. So this is maybe a little bit easier. They are very persistent individuals. They will continue to call and bother you to get the continued money. This is not so easy when you're thinking about financial abuse when it's your family, because they're in close proximity with you. They could be living with you, and it's family. So separating that and stopping all communication sometimes can be a little bit more difficult. But it's important to also reach out to family members or other friends who might be there as a support in those kind of situations when these arise. Here's the next slide, please. So reporting is the big question about where do I go? Who do I speak to? Because whether it's financial abuse, whether it's a family member most often the time, or someone that you're in that relationship of trust with, or it's a fraudster that you don't know, there are different mechanisms of where you can go to reach out for help and to report to. And often we may not be knowing where to do that, and we're embarrassed, as I mentioned, because people may think that you're like you don't have the capacity. Like, how could she have given $100,000 away just like that? She must be, must have some sort of dementia. So people think that you might be targeted in terms of, if I say something, somebody will think less of me, or you'll lose some form of your independence. So it's important not to think that. It's important to reach out for help and to report it so that we can stop that financial abuse from continuing to happen. The next slide, please. So who can you report to? Whether it's for elder abuse or financial abuse, in most cases, you want to talk to your local law enforcement officer, whether that's OPP, your regional police, or RCMP. They are there to help and protect your safety and well-being. So if for financial abuse, many officers or many detachments now and policing have a dedicated senior support officer that will assist you. And if they don't, then other officers obviously will be able to provide assistance. But it's also important to ask that question because it's fairly new. More and more detachments are now having an officer or officers dedicated to a senior portfolio. So they have better training and around the issues around older adults. So the law enforcement agencies can get your information and gather what's going on and help you through that process. If you've been a victim of frauds and scams, same thing. If you're a victim, you want to report it to your police because you're the victim within that jurisdiction of where you are. So report that, and then they can do a follow-up. You can also report to the Canadian Fraud Center because they keep track of all the different frauds and scams that are happening across the country. And they work with our counterparts in the United States and across the world, actually, to try to take down these fraudsters. So as Krista mentioned, the Anti-Fraud Center has a listing of all the different new scams that are out there. So I encourage you to go to their website because it keeps you up to date on where to go. But your local officer will help through that process. Sometimes it's difficult for the officers to get money back from a frauds and scams because they don't know where these people reside. It could be overseas. If you wired the money, it's much more difficult to get that money back once it's gone. It all depends on the actual fraud that's actually taking place. Can you go to the next slide, please? We also encourage, now, not so much for fraud and scams, but for financial abuse. We often get individuals calling us or family or neighbors who see something happening where they don't know what to do. They don't really want to disclose their name to a police report. So we encourage people to call Crime Stoppers. You can call Crime Stoppers anonymously and indicate what your concern is about someone that they may be encountering some form of abuse, including financial abuse, and they can take that information and look into it further. Next slide, please. I'm just going to go quickly through this. If you are concerned about your taxes, like I know Krista had mentioned the CRA scam. We do get, they are so convincing, you think that maybe I did owe money and you send money right away. Call the CRA yourself. They're not going to call you, but you can call them. Verify that you don't owe any back taxes, that there's nothing, your balance is zero, what you actually do owe. So then you can be of sound mind that you don't, and that this is actually a scam. So actually, have that communication. They've been doing a lot of education around frauds and scams on their website because they know that this is happening quite often. You can also look at the Competition Bureau. They have a lot of information around deceptive marketing practices, and they handle reports of people who are not on the up and up in terms of their business practices. And then the Ministry of Government and Consumer Services will help also to inform individuals about frauds and scams that are happening. Next slide, please. And then lastly, the Financial Consumer Agency of Canada, they also work to protect financial services. And they kind of oversee the regulatory, their agency. And when I was looking this up just recently, it's funny enough that when, not funny enough, but the ironic part is that these fraudsters are actually doing things called spoofing, as Krista kind of mentioned, is that they will make it look like they are calling you from those CRA agencies. So they've actually now on their websites had this kind of posting saying, please be careful, because they know that they've been pretending that they're the agency, they're a CRA. So they're actually saying that it's happening to them themselves. So, and we see this with banking. You get these fraud things and it looks like their logo, it looks legitimate, and then you click and all of a sudden they want all your personal information. So again, they're just warning everybody again not to really check those sites and call the person yourself to verify that information. Next slide. Sorry, next slide. One thing that's important is if you have been a victim of that, you should check your credit ratings, because you don't know if it's a family member or a fraudster. If they've gathered your information, have they done anything else with it? So you can go to Equifax and TransUnion to check your credit rating. It is free that you can do that, I believe, once a year. And just to let you know what your rating is. And if there's anything that's out of the ordinary, will come to your attention if they have been doing anything if there's anything that's been suspicious in your own profile. So I encourage you to check that out. Next slide, please. And then the legal supports. I think it's important to talk about if you're a victim of financial abuse, because I know Irina talked about powers of attorney. When a person's not capable, as she had mentioned in that case, if someone is not capable and we know that person may be taken advantage of, the Office of the Public Guardian Trustee, whether it's jurisdiction specific, so it may be called something a little bit different within the area you live in, but they can look into people who are vulnerable and have dementia and are at risk, or so their capacity, they don't have to have dementia, but their capacity is the ability that they cannot understand, appreciate their circumstances, and they're that significant risk, then they can look into those situations of that vulnerability for that individual. So I just put on some other sites, a JusticeNet and a Law Referral Service. There are different names, but they are across Canada where you can look up what those law services that are available within your area. Many of them provide at least some free limited legal consultation to you with just to give you some information or resources based on your situation. Next slide, please. So also important to monitor your accounts. after you've known that something has happened, whether it's financial abuse or fraud, check your accounting. If you have to change a password, if you're not sure, change those passwords, because you want to make sure that your finance or wealth is still secure. Next slide. And then if there's issues around banking, you can contact the banking services or ombudsman, that they can investigate complaints. Or, if you're having difficulties with your banks, I've had just one recently where it was the financial banking service was, there was a family issue around financial powers of attorney. And that was kind of the last resort, is the banking sort of helping them or not? They are a resource that you can use for any sort of dispute resolution and helping out in terms of services. Next slide, please. So do your homework, as Krista mentioned. Check the organization. Do your searches online before you invest in some thing that might be a potential scam. The Google is great in finding out if something is legit, though you do have to watch, because people can pretend that they're actually a legit organization but making fake websites as well. So it's important to do your homework. Next slide. I just want to wrap up by talking about the emotional support, because becoming a victim can have some pretty emotional impact on individuals, including, insomnia, resentment, and sometimes even suicidal thoughts. I've had some of those calls where people have been concerned, where they've lost their life savings and they don't know what else to do. They're very desperate. So I think it's important to reach out to people for supports. So the next slide is that across Ontario, across Canada, we have support lines and helplines to assist individuals and seniors in these kind of circumstances, just to talk to as counselors. So the next slide just gives an overview, if you can go to the next one, of all the different support lines that are available across Canada in your jurisdiction. So I would encourage you to reach out to those support lines, because they can be there to help you, give you information referral to other services and programs that can help you within the jurisdiction that you live. And the Canadian Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse has many of these lines listed on their website as well, so you can get that information.
Rand, quick question to this particular slide and contacting support lines. Is there any specific support line or lines available for, say, elderly people whose first language is not English?
Yes, so I can give you Ontario specific. The Ontario Senior Safety Line is available in over 150 languages. So they also have online chat now, which is a new service, and many of these other helplines may have something similar. So they will tap into a translator, and they will provide the service that you need within language. They ask that you just speak the language that you speak, and they will tap into the translation or organization that they use to get you that support.
Fantastic.
Next slide. So just to wrap up, we do have tools on our website similar to what Krista was mentioned. We have a module on financial abuse of older adults that just talks about the whole issue and tips. With frauds and scams, we've been doing some tip sheets that we post on our social media and Facebook, and we also have one around your legal rights around financial abuse and powers of attorney as well. And last slide. Again, if you're interested in reaching out to us, we have a website with lots of information and webinars that we host on a regular basis. In fact, ironically, the one that we're just doing next after this session is on an older woman who was a victim of a scam con artist. And she unfortunately has passed away. But it was a befriended kind of individual, similar to what Krista said, the friend of a friend. And she got taken advantage of and she lost her life savings basically from that. So it's important to take all this into consideration. We thank you for attending. Follow us on our social media. We do post all of our upcoming events and tips and information on a regular basis. So thank you again.
Thank you, Rianne. Thank you for that excellent detail, and thank you for sharing your contact information for anybody who wishes to get in touch with you. At this point, we're just about at 10 minutes before 1. I will ask Marie to come back on. And I have a question for Marie specifically. Marie, why is it important to speak to a qualified financial professional?
Well, obviously, your finances are really important to your current and future well-being, and money's kind of a sensitive topic. So in order to plan your finances, you'll be sharing information with your advisor. So you need to choose an advisor that you trust, and an advisor can help you obviously plan your investment strategies, your borrowing needs, the education of your children, and your retirement. And these are all important milestones in your life. So you need to do your due diligence. I just wanted to give a few tips to people who are looking for a financial advisor in terms of what to ask. So there's 4 questions you can ask the advisor to get to know more about the advisor. The first would be their education and professional experience. And then what certification or designation do they hold? And there's a number of designations up on the screen there that are credible designations. How long have they been with the firm? And how long have they been practicing? And get references from previous or current clients. And then the second part of the information you're going to want to know is what is the advisor's approach? So you want to know how they think they can help you achieve your goals, what products and services that they offer and what they're licensed to sell, how they decide on appropriate investments for their clients, if they're paid a salary, commission, or other fees, and how often you'll meet and how they'll keep you informed. So this is the kind of information that you should be asking your advisor to provide you. And there's an information that your advisor will ask you to provide: your age, your total annual income, your estimated net worth, if you have any dependents, your money expenses, the amount of income tax you pay, your investment knowledge and experience, how comfortable you are with your knowledge and investments, your investment goals, and when you need access to your money, and how much risk tolerance do you have. So that's all information that that an advisor will ask you. And so it's an exchange of information that's really important, but it's really important, I think, to get the advice you need to plan your future.
That's great. Thank you very much, Marie. At this point, we'll just move ahead to the Q&A session. I've got some very interesting and good questions asked by our attendees today, and I will just I will field these to the panelists just in general. So anybody who would like to jump in. First question I'd like to ask is around property title fraud. And although there is seemingly a higher prevalence of this in the United States, have any one of you ever come across this particular issue in Canada, and how common is it? Anybody who'd like to take that?
Well, I can say something. I honestly haven't come across it, but I did. But I understand it is quite common. Like the statistics on the amount of money lost through property title fraud they're quite high, and what makes property title fraud possible is identity theft. So you got to start with identity theft. They have to get your personal information, and then they use that to forge documents. So all the tips that Rayanne and I talked about apply. Is just keep those documents at home if you don't need them in your purse for that particular appointment, and don't give those documents and keep those numbers secret.
That makes good sense. Rayanne, have you come across this in your career at all?
No, I think in terms of title fraud, sometimes I've done some work or presentations around real estate fraud where they do get sort of that befriended, duped out of their, signing over their home and not even realizing it, or they've gone away and the son has had power of attorney and sold their house under them. That kind of thing but I haven't had as experience as Chris had mentioned.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Again, I'm more aware of this type of thing happening south of the border, much less so in Canada. I think it has more to do with sort of regulation and how we're structured here, perhaps. But it's a bit of a complex issue to get into in a couple of minutes. I'll ask this further question. Krista, you mentioned personal identification and personal information. There's a very interesting question here that isn't necessarily around the fraud piece, but around personal information. In the cases where, in many cases, where you may go into a retail store to purchase something, and the person who is, cashing you out is asking you for your email address, your home address, personal phone number, this sort of a thing. And in some cases, perhaps even insist that they can't complete the transaction without this information. What would you advise in situations like that?
Well, first of all, if anybody ever said they couldn't sell me a pair of shoes unless I told them my email address, to me that would be a red flag that that either they're completely incompetent or they're lying or they're trying to steal my money, because you don't need my email address or my birthday to sell me a pair of shoes. I do think a lot of companies increasingly have these programs where they will send you a message on your birthday and you might get 10% off on your birthday. So you're motivated to provide your birth date. I think in a lot of cases that's okay, but it does increase the risk. Like they are supposed to keep your information confidential. But there are 5 people standing behind you in line who hear your birthday when you say it out loud, and and who knows, maybe one employee is a bad employee. So, is it okay to give your birthday? It's probably okay because you can't commit a lot of identity theft with just the birthday, but all this stuff adds up. And the more of our personal information we share unnecessarily, the more we increase our risk. So I guess it's like, how much do you want that 10% discount? And can you check if nobody's standing behind you? Like, there are ways you can sort of reduce that risk. But if they asked for your medical number to sell you shoes, for sure that's a scam. Anytime anybody asks you for your social insurance number and they're not the government, it's a scam. So it depends on what kind of information they're asking you for as well.
It seems to me that in the case of retailers, it seems to me that they're more trying to build a shopping profile on you.
They are. And I've had cases where, like, I've been buying something and they said, well, we want to have this information so we can sell you this. We need it for our files. And when I've pushed a little, but I've said, what if I did this? Or what if I gave you a fake address? They've been like, actually, that's okay for our file. We just need something in those boxes. But I can give somebody else's birthday and it doesn't actually matter for their files.
Right. I think we've got time maybe for one more quick question here. And, perhaps Krista, you can pick this one up as well, because I think it's maybe very relevant to what you had presented. The question was, sometimes I receive job offers by email without an interview and with remuneration, but I am asked for a trial period of 10 days, as well as my personal data and my bank account. What is the best way to verify such emails, knowing that the company has a website and also has contact numbers within Canada?
So I would say this is one of those too good to be true situations. Nobody sends you an offer for a job you haven't applied that asks you to provide confidential information. I understand that sometimes you really want a job so that you want to check and see if maybe this is a true offer, but I'm pretty confident saying that's a scam. It's a very clever one due time of low employment, high unemployment. But if you want a job with that particular organization, you could phone them, but you need to first call the Better Business Bureau and make sure they're actually an organization. But I feel like the desire to even check if that's a legitimate job offer is an act of desperation. People do not email you job offers like that. That's not how reputable businesses operate. And I would say that if that is how they operate and they are an employer, that's a crap employer you don't want to work for. But anyway, that is a scam for sure.
Yeah, I think the essence of this question was around, this kind of an email being received, yet the company appears to be very legitimate and maybe even known. So
No, it appears legitimate, but it's not legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
People can come up with very sophisticated websites to make them look legit, but this is not how people get offered jobs. particularly well-paying jobs, like with good salaries, they would never ask you for your bank account information in a job offer. This does not happen. You should never, under any circumstances, provide your bank account information over an email. Just never, ever do it.
Great advice. Great advice. I think at this point, we're about 1 minute to 1 o'clock. I will invite Marie back. I would like to thank everybody for attending today. It was a pleasure speaking with you all, and I'd like to thank all the panelists for joining us as well. Marie, back to you.
Sure, thanks, John, and thank you to Irina, Krista, and Rianne, and to you, John, for moderating. It's been a great session. If you have additional questions from the audience, please email designations@csi.ca. We will be providing a replay of this event, and that'll be coming out in the coming days. So thank you for joining, and we wish you a great day.